Wait, let's make sure we got it before you keep going.
Okay, hang on, bear with us just a second.
Okay, try talking and be like, can you guys hear me? Message if you can hear.
Can you guys hear me? If you can, please shoot me a message.
I can hear you now, yay!
Okay. Well, we had some technical difficulties here to start with. Technology is great when it works. That's what I always say. You guys missed my entire diatribe. Unless you can read lips, that might have been good. First of all, I wanted to say good morning to everybody. Hope everybody's doing well in the goofiness that is going on in the planet. Next, I'd have to say, if you have any questions, this is an idea that Mary Beth had as far as doing some live training. Normally I have instructor class today, and there'll be we have an open forum as always in class. Instructors can ask any questions, and then I always have something prepared, but it's nice because it usually dovetails into whatever the question is, or I can take it and form it to that. So this is like class as well. Then anybody else that's out online and is watching, you guys feel free to ask questions. Every day I ask if somebody has a question. Be happy to field them. The other thing is that as you saw in the beginning when we had no volume, but we apologize for the technology. Right now this is a trial run on this, so it's not going to be HBO quality high def stuff here, but the information will be good. That I can promise you. So one, I have some things that I can go through with you guys as well, but I'd rather open it up to where you guys have questions and I can field things for you, and then we can do as much as possible in this kind of format. The first thing I would look at is for everyone, and this might be something good to start off with, is that especially with the nature of how things have been going on right now for the last month, mindset. And this goes for as well as training or fighting or self-defense and anything that we do. This is your personal life as well. Mindset is critical. If you're in a mindset of where you're angry, you're afraid, you're anxious, you're worried, your brain doesn't have access to everything that you have as far as potential to be able to work at your highest level. And that's regardless of whether I'm at work, I'm dealing with the kids, or I might be defending myself. So mindset is key, and one of the things that we continually work. And if you think about it, those of you that are in class, is that I have people many times ask, well, why do we do so many repetitions of the same thing? Well, it's for the very same reason that all the people that fight use the same method or the same mode of training, is that, and there it's even more limited. Luckily, those guys, they're hyper-focused on one specific thing. It's not every realm of self-defense. Nobody gets to take a knife or stick or a gun in the cage, but they're limited to a scope, but it's as live as possible. It's as live until somebody breaks something or somebody gets knocked out or they run out of time. It's going to be that live, but the scope of how they train and what they do is very limited, but they must be focused on those 2 or 3 particular things. And usually what I give guys is 1 or 2 things to work on for the entire fight and for that line. So for them to work and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat the same thing is something, one, we're training in the nervous system just so you can do the technique. The other thing would be this, is that you work on your belief system. If you believe and your belief level is extremely high, meaning your confidence will be high and that you'll be feeling that way and that you're more prepared and you're more focused, and the more I have that, the better I'll be able to defend myself, and the better my guys, but the better they're able to fight. So one of the things that especially that we look at with that is they will repeat technique over and over and over again until they have it locked down, at least to where I think they can repeat it under a high level of stress. One of the biggest examples of this that I use is you guys that know Dom. He had a fight. We worked on a particular submission that he added to his repertoire, and we worked it to death for about 7 weeks. And what was funny was that the fight, the guy weighed in, he was much bigger than what Dom was. Dom tapped this guy out in, I don't know, it's probably a minute 12, something like that, minute 15. And what was funny is that he went back after he had won, and this is the day after and the day after that, and like we always do, he went back and he's reviewing the fight, and he said he watched it. Now this is him saying it. He told me, you know, I watched the fight 5 times before I realized that I had done the technique that we had been working on for the last 7 weeks. Here's the person who did the technique in the middle of a fight to win a fight, and he didn't even realize that he had done it just for the fact the way that we had been training. So the training is not just to learn the technique. It's more importantly is that you are able to then execute the technique under high stress. And if it's not embedded or encoded or neurally driven that you can do that, you're going to have a very difficult time repeating it under stress. And that's the same as anything. So if you guys want to, if you're giving part of your job at work is you give presentations and you are worried or anxious or afraid of looking like a knucklehead while you're doing a presentation, I guarantee you your presentation will not come off as well as if you practice that same presentation 100 times, 500 times, and finally if you get to the point where you don't care. Another example would be for a lot of you guys that you know, Corinne Mosher. We were talking, she had an event that she's an international 3-gun competitor, a firearm competitor, and she had an event to where she went and helped reset stations after everybody had done the run. Usually people go through and there's a series of stations. If you think about an obstacle course for shooting, for those of you that aren't familiar with the format, it's about like that. So there's certain areas they transition to different weapons. It might be pistol one time, to a shotgun at another, to a rifle at another, and back and forth. Well, she ended up having to go very late in the rotation as far as where all the people were. And she told me that she had set up, helped reset targets and reset targets and reset targets until she was so bored, she was losing her mind with it. She went through and she absolutely smoked everyone at the competition. Her time was 8 seconds faster, I think, than everybody else's, which, to give you an idea as far as comparison wise, that would be like a football team winning by 50. That's about how big of a gap it was. And then her second time was still that much faster. It wasn't quite as fast as the other one, but it was very, very close to that. So, and I told her what was interesting is that I believe that she was so dialed in, she knew where everything was, and she had done it so many times, everything else went away. All the thinking about how I'm going to compete, how am I going to do, how is it this, is this station hard, is this one easy, how's my time, how am I compared to everybody else, what did so-and-so do, all that went out the window because it was dialed in and focused on, yeah, I got this, this is easy. So when you're training, think about that as far as your self-defense. This is why we run repetition. What's funny to me is that most people don't want to do, they want to be excellent in what they do, but they don't want to do the boring shit. You got to do the boring shit. Michael Jordan didn't just practice dunks from the free throw line. There was constant work on very, very basic things. But again, repetition, repetition, repetition until the point where you can repeat it under high stress. The other, if you think about fear state, and doing things. The other one, and I reference Adonis on this, we talked about this in an instructor class a couple weeks ago, was belief. And one of the things that he will tell students when we're training in class is trust the technique, trust the technique. And what's funny is that everything that we do, whether it's the firearms training that we do as far as the integrated Krav Maga plus the concealed carry or the firearm work to what we do in self-defense, everything was paid for in blood, as Rick would say. Everything's been battle tested. There's nothing here that's theory. It's already worked. And if you're going to use something, if you're going to train in it, if you can understand that, that will go a long way to helping you and train in the techniques. Imagine someone that walks in the door, and I've had this happen. I still don't understand why this happens. Imagine somebody walks in the door, and maybe they've trained in other things, or they just don't believe that what we have is better than what they've done. How open do you think that person will be to learning? I would say little to none. If you're not open, any of that information that's coming in, you're not going to absorb it, or you'll absorb very little. So to me, I'll give you an example for me is that when I first went out to Los Angeles to train in Krav Maga, I already had multiple black belts in traditional martial arts. I had trained in 3 or 4 traditional martial arts, boxed, wrestled, you name it, all kinds of sports. And I remember walking out the first day, and I walked into the room. I had no idea what we're going to do. And I did this. Show me what you got. And I am completely open to whatever they were going to show me. Now, I would take and absorb the entire thing and then measure. So do it first, then measure. What most people will do is you come in, you do your training, is every single thing people weigh against what they already know. And if you do that, one, you're missing out on everything else that follows because your mind's already working on and trying to argue with or negate or trying to figure out how this compares to something else you know. You have to suspend that in order to train well. If you don't, you're going to get limited access. You have people that do that all the time. The other thing would be that it opens me up to make an honest assessment of what it is I'm learning. If you take everything, imagine going to a restaurant. I walk in the front door and I don't like how the foyer's laid out. And I turn around and I leave. And I bitch about the restaurant and say it's terrible. Well, you didn't even eat the food. You just didn't like the first part of the area. So now I go in, maybe I had an appetizer. I didn't like that, or I didn't like the look of the waiter. Absorb the entire thing first so you can make an honest assessment. You'll get more out of what you're doing, and it will save you time. Normally the people that I see that hunt and peck, I call it hunt and peck, and look at different things, is they want to take a piece of something. I have guys come in all the time. Steve, I want to come in and train. I want to take a little bit of this, to go train other people and take a little bit of something else I know, a little bit of something else I know. Okay, what little bit are you going to take? You're not even open to everything. So what are you going to get? And the last would be is that I tell people that come in, if your stuff was so good, why are you here? Because obviously there's something missing in your training that you're looking for. And as I always say, if your shit worked, we would teach it. I don't teach anything that I don't do and isn't proven to work. If I did see something that did work, I would steal it and we would incorporate it into our basic principles. So that's that line from there. So
I've got some questions if you're ready to move on from that.
Let's let them rip.
Okay, the first one we have was actually Sean Old. I think you know this guy. He asked.
Short dude.
Yeah, tiny guy.
Dude.
He said, "Can you discuss home defense?" And then we've got a couple more questions after that.
Good. Home defense. I'll go through this quick, and I'll see if I can tie into everything else. Specifically, we have a lot of people that train, and their significant other or spouse does not. And that is, I see this as a problem. The same as if I have police officers that I've trained for almost 30 years. When they come in, I ask them, do you have a partner? And if some of them do, I go, where's your partner? Because your partner should be training here. Now, that's a trained police officer. That's a trained agent. That's military personnel. Might even be special forces guys. I go, do you have people that train with you? They need or ride with you or do those things with you. They need to train with you. They need to know not necessarily everything or be better than you or know as much as you, but they need to know what you're going to do. We've talked about this. I know Sean experienced this when we did the firearms training. If we're in a car and I have a weapon and I'm going to draw the weapon and my significant other doesn't know what I'm going to do, is it a good bet that they're going to be at risk? Yes. The same thing goes for your house. Now, if I have some type of home invasion, where do you go? Where do you put the kids if you have kids? Here's what we suggest. You lock the door. You have them lock their door. They need to train. If they're too small, you can take and go to their room and lock the door. You get the phone, we dial 911. You give them the name, your address. They should have the phone number that you're dialing from there, and then you wait in that locked area if you have a home invasion. That can be very, very scary stuff. We've had members at the school that have had that happen. So the risk is that if I don't carry a firearm, what do I do? How do I assess things? You also have the biggest problem is that you have other people involved in the house. So one would be understanding that if it's middle of the day and someone comes to the door, how do I handle it? If I'm there, do I know where the other people in the house are? A lot of times these are little things that people never think of until something like this happens. And then people are frantically looking for whoever. This is a good scenario, especially for the parents that you have little kids, is to talk to them about who comes in the house, who gets to come by. I know when Mary Beth and I go anywhere and we tell the kids that the kids are staying here, is that this. And when we walk out the door is this. Lock the door. Who do you let in? And the kids yell, nobody. Only you or mom. I go, police officer? Nope. So nobody, unless it's a dire emergency on those lines. So they understand that, but this is something you need to train with them as well. Also, if you happen to have, if you have firearms, that's why it's good to do our class with us. So you know about these things with home invasion, how you cover in the house. So understand this. We've done these home invasion scenarios with people many times, especially with our advanced class, and we do a low light, no light. So if it's dark in your house, dark at night, and we have people that we would go bust into a room, and it's funny to hear even males and their voice go up an octave because they're that stressed out only on a scenario. So understand when this happens, your stress level is going to go up. And again, we just talked about mindset as one. Take a couple deep breaths, try to calm the body. 6 in, 2 out, 7 if you can. This is stuff, again, you need to practice calming yourself, and you go, oh, I'll just do this when it gets here. On your phone, I always recommend that people have 911 dialed on a speed dial where you can access it right away. Understand that people go, well, my phone's by my bed, I'll just swipe it. That's a problem. If you're sweaty at all, like being nervous or scared, or you're wet, or it's cold for whatever reason, and you go to swipe it, it doesn't work. So you have to have access when you do that. So understand how to get to it. practice doing it. It's time well spent. It doesn't take very long. I don't wait for, I don't know, 60 days and then practice it for an hour every day, only on 1 or 2 days. 2 or 3 minutes every day as part of something that you do out of habit, if that makes sense. And those would probably be the big things.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie Smead, I don't know if they can hear me.
Okay.
Jamie Smead asked, how do you continue to attack and defend once you've been injured? For example, do you switch your fighting stance if your dominant arm was injured?
Okay. Well,
maybe repeat the question in case they didn't hear it.
Yeah. Well, Jamie asked, how do we continue to attack and defend if we're injured in that situation? That is a great question because I would bet on it. If it doesn't happen and you get done a fight and you check everything and you've got all your fingers and toes and you're all together, it's a good day. Normally something will happen. The good thing is that you have tremendous amount of adrenaline in your body and you probably won't even notice at first unless it's tremendously debilitating, like something broken or dislocated. As I've mentioned in class, that we'll have people, you might have someone, and we have this from police reports where somebody was stabbed upwards of 50 times and didn't know they were being stabbed until they looked down and they saw the blood. They just thought they were being punched really hard. So that's a very extreme level, but understand that's what your body will do under that high stress. It's designed to do that to protect you. So the adrenaline level will be huge. What I would try and do is try and understand is, one, if you have something, an injury like that, I've had that where I've had an arm dislocated. And immediately all I did is I put it on my body. Now I'm left-handed. So this was my dominant side. So if you think about a right-hander being here and now your right arm is disabled, completely disabled, I don't necessarily want to switch stances to protect myself. I can use that front hand. Most right-handers great with their left, but again, your body will understand because you're handed. And I talk about this in class all the time. I have people that do the sport karate stuff and they like to jump around and switch sides, is that your brain, unless you've trained it a tremendous amount of time or even more than what you've trained your dominant side, your brain will always gravitate back to your dominant side because you're handed as a human. If I'm right-handed and your survival instinct is this, you'll see people even if they're cowering and it's their last bastion of survival and where they're going to make their stand, you'll see this and you'll see everybody, I do mean just about everybody until they're very well trained, use just their dominant hand. And then if they use the leg, they use their dominant leg. So it takes some training to do that, but just understand that's what your body's going to do. Now, this is why we train in class that you do everything both sides as much as possible. Understand that I don't necessarily want to switch that much. If I can, if I have to, I have to. And that's what I've got to do. The fighting and that portion of it is there are times where you're going to need to protect yourself. And that's when you're going to need to use longer extremities. So you're going to need to use kicking. And I would say if you have an arm that's injured, let's say if you're right-handed and your right arm, you just start using chopping type motions and kicking, using a lot of front things, groin, knees, that type of striking to create space and still be able to fight. It's a tough situation. If you have a leg injured, it's going to be the same type of thing. You're going to have to do whatever you can do. Where I wouldn't try to go is to switch back and forth and immediately understand that you're not going to defend as well. And so the better thing is to move as much as possible, if that makes sense.
So we can answer the question, but it looks like we've got some stream is all screwed up. So why don't you let them know that we're going to pause and try to re-go it.
Okay, guys, we're having a little bit of problem with the live stream. So we're going to pause it and then we'll come right back here in a minute. I'll see you guys in a minute.
You can hear me, I didn't know.
They can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, hey.
Yay!
Okay, we're back.
Okay, we're good. All right.
Okay, we're back.
Are you done with that, or would you like to continue? Any other questions?
The other thing I would look at is immediately, if I can, grab some type of weapon or anything. Again, mobility is key. If you're injured, put in your head, and I tell this with people, normally we do this when we talk about knife attacks. If somebody has a knife, put in your head you're going to get cut. You're probably going to get cut, and to understand, you go, whatever it takes. So the mindset, we go back to what we started the whole morning with, is mindset. When I go to the mindset of, I'm going home safe, and let's say my arm's broken, and I do this, fuck you, and I'm going to keep going. I'm not so worried about this as I am the end. So we go back to outcome. We go back to survival. Again, this is why we constantly train. These are the disruption techniques that we work in class. You're in the bag, come by and grab your arm and hold it to where you can't do it. That might happen. You get knocked down. Great, get up. It's constantly, it's the understanding of you go until. And this is one thing that helped me as far as anything, and especially military training and anything that happens, is this. I immediately put in my head, it can't go forever. It's going to end sometime, and I'm going to go until it stops. And then at that point, I've made a decision in my head. That's my decision. Done. I'm not going to change that. So whatever happens in between that time, I'm okay with. It'll suck. I'll deal with it later. So if that makes sense. Okay.
Okay, our next question is from Clay.
Clayman.
Okay, and he says, I'd like to hear about the balance transfer in rotation, where we focus on turning the balls of the feet inward in the fighting stance, creating internal tension to move fluidly.
Okay. Okay. Clay, I don't know where you heard that. You must be making that shit up. No, this might be harder to do as far as on the floor here, or where you guys can see me. What's interesting as far as your movement, and I do this, for me, I usually take whatever we have done and what I teach you guys and try and transfer this knowledge. It's something I already do. Maybe it might be something I've learned, but it's usually something I already do. And then I need to reverse engineer what it is. So one of the biggest things that you have to do is you have to feel what we're talking about. Now, when you're on your feet, and we've talked about movement, and I will take and turn in my front foot slightly, but the contact points, if you want to think about your driver, and if this is your foot, the ball of the big toe into the heel. And if you think about a line, and we've worked these before with a balance board, is where I can take your foot and I rotate it this way. So if you think of the ball of the foot and the heel, and the outside of the foot, think about it as being slightly off the ground, maybe the width of a nickel. I mean, that little, but it's dug into the ground, or the same as if I'm a baseball pitcher and I dig into the rubber to get some push off. That's the feeling that I want to have on my feet. And when I do this, and you can do this while standing still with your feet square, and this is why we do this turning exercise in here in class, is that the feet will drive the body. It always cracks me up when I'll ask someone, how are you doing what you're doing? How are you moving? And I'll see them do this. Because they don't have any idea, and then there's a guess. The motion, everything is generated. Well, I turn my hips. I go, okay, turn your hip. But doesn't necessarily work. The only way you're connected to the planet while you're standing is by your feet. So when I take and I turn, if you think of turning this foot and driving, it will turn the hip that direction. I need to have some type of backstop when I turn my foot like this and generate power. So like if I'm kicking off of a mound or off of a pitching rubber and I'm stepping, if you've ever watched a pitcher kick his leg up, step in, and the dirt's loose, where they step with their front leg and they miss, where does the ball go? It's usually blown up in about the third row. It's going to hit somebody or it's in the dirt.
That's what we see.
Can they still hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, but it needs to just catch up.
Okay. But I'm being caught up right now. It's a little bit of a lag time for you guys. Sorry about that.
I'm trying to touch.
Can they hear me?
Okay, now we're good.
Okay, we're back on. Sorry about the delay there. So when I kick off of one foot, I need another foot to land. And if you watch, as I mentioned with somebody stepping on the mound, if the dirt's loose, and you'll see pitchers will bitch about this if this happens in a game, is it will kick up and you'll see the foot and you'll see the front foot slide and the ball usually goes up in about the third row, okay? Or it hits the ground before the batter because I don't have anything to plant on, to plant my pivotal axis on and then release. So the same as if I'm going to throw a ball from the outfield, I'm going to throw a javelin, I'm going to hit a tennis ball, a backhand or forehand, that I need another foot to transfer the weight into, and then it stabilizes, okay? And then being able to rotate from there. The easiest way, so for like when we do it, is if you go from, since we're lefties, if you go from your right foot turned in slightly, your left foot driving off the ball of the big toe, when I push and I start to turn that left hip into the other foot, there'll be resistance on the inside of the ball of the foot to the heel. And when that resistance, when it pushes against there and it catches the resistance, you'll feel the knee bend, and I can turn over that leg very smoothly and extend. Now, the problem is if I have my feet facing a different direction than where I'm going, and where it will do, and you guys know this from, and you saw this from the balance work we did, that if my feet are pointed here, where am I weak? Well, I'm weak here, and I'm weak going that way. So if my feet are pointed too far in one direction or the other, there's no backstop, or that backstop kicks me in a direction that I don't want to go. So there's a small area your body will feel where it needs to be to set that to where it's turned in slightly, and it's probably, I don't know, 10 degrees. But then the feeling of the ball of the foot driving into the other ball of the foot, or if you want to work it simply and you can just play with this and feel, is a line going from the ball of the big toe to the heel, and on the other foot, ball of the big toe to the heel, and then just turn and press with your feet strongly into the other foot, and you'll feel it start to turn to where the body weight will shift. For example, if you do the square, and now I turn to where I'm over my right leg by doing what? If you remember, we did what? I push off the heel to turn it. I don't just turn the foot in place because it backs me up, as my body shifts to one side and then rotates. Now when I come back, the foot rotates back, it goes down, and I shift to center. That was not me yelling, that was Mary Beth. You guys might have thought I had an aneurysm. That was her.
Sorry, you guys.
I know, she's very subtle when she does things. So I can hear everybody laughing over the internet. It's pretty funny. So when I go to the other side, I don't just turn my foot, I press off the inside of the foot to the other side and then let it release and rotate. So when you work these, again, we're going back with bilateral symmetry of the body, and you'll see slipping motion, bobbing and weaving underneath, and it makes the body run very smoothly if you stay on those insides. The minute your foot goes from here to flat or pronated, and I start to get the weight here, now the body goes off balance, okay? And then the body starts to shut down. The rotation is slower. Limbs go away from the body, like if we're punching, and you'll see people stand flat-footed and swing, and it's usually wild haymakers, okay? To where you'll see people who are, especially good boxers, or when they're very disciplined or they're fresh, is that you'll see motion to where they turn over that front foot and everything stays very smooth and compact, kind of like a figure skater would spin, okay, by bringing the limbs in. As soon as the feet aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing and driving the body that way, now everything kind of rolls and wobbles, and it's kind of like a gyroscope, as it's or some type of mechanism like that is dying, and then it starts to wobble more because it's off the center, if that makes sense. The best drills we have for doing that is taking and trying to turn those feet out as hard as you can and just rotating back and forth until you feel it. Now as you start to move, now everything that we do operates from there. The biggest thing that you want to feel is that when you're not there, once you have to feel it in order to replicate it. If you can't feel it, good luck. I can put you there and help you to feel it. Once you feel it, though, we have to do, again, back to the training, neural patterning, neural grooving, and we do it over and over and over until we can feel it. Now where you get to is that I could come running in from somewhere, stop, and turn and do, or we're operating from with firearms that I may come into a building and I'm running full run and dead stop and going to being able to go right to a shooting stance, to a fighting stance, getting hit and recovering and feeling where your feet are to go back to that. So going back to the part of what Jamie had asked before, what do you do if you're injured? Feel those same things on your feet, maybe from the other stance if you're there. So I hope that helps as far as rotating. The easiest thing I can think for you guys to do to learn how to do this is to throw a ball with your dominant hand as far as you can and just feel what your feet are doing. And I would throw it like a baseball pitcher. I would throw it about this high and try and throw it, 50, 60, 70 feet and throw it at that level. And you'll feel, I've trained guys that are high level baseball players that they'll tell you when they step off the mound, their front foot is turned in slightly, pointed at the plate. That's why. And it's nice to have cleats to dig in. We don't necessarily have those, but it helps for that, if that makes sense.
Okay, Sean asked about more home stuff.
Oh, cool.
So in terms of the home stuff, I'd like to hear more about quick assessment of situations, meaning like if this person's in my house, to be killed immediately, or they're just drunk and looking through my fridge. So that assessment.
Okay.
You're tired, you're.
How do I do that quickly? Scenario based. Sean is lucky he got to see this firsthand when we did the firearms class, is that you don't always know, and how you react can be, it's triggered. You might not, you don't have time to think you're going to react, which is why we work on so much programming and doing things. The biggest thing is to assess, and Sean knows because I harass him about this to death, is that you need to try under that super high stress to remain calm and make a decision from a more focused state than a rage state. Rage is good when that's all I've got. And there's certain times where I need that and I need to turn on the blowtorch. But other times I want something very fine. If I automatically panic, this is for all the people on the planet right now. If I automatically panic and I assume the worst, and the worst kind of fear is the unknown, is that I'm not going to make good decisions from there. You're just not. People go, well, I got to make some decision. Agreed. You're going to make a decision. What do you do to assess the situation? What do you do to calm yourself? So first things first, one, training is one, and it's paramount. Two is that you need to be able to control your state more. The more you can dial in and focus on immediately, and ask yourself this, what's the most important thing in this moment? What's the most important thing for you in this moment? Is it to just react and go smash who's ever in my house? Maybe, maybe not. And this can be somebody just coming in. This could be this time of day here where you get, we've had one of our guys that used to train at the school, he's in the Navy now. His wife opened the door. Some crackhead was beating on the door, opened the door, and he wanted to find a place to plug his phone in. That's all he wanted. He didn't want to attack them, didn't want to do anything. He just wanted to plug his phone in. Now, is that, and then the dogs chewed him up, which was good. The dog attacked him. I go, but here I could have done this. This guy starts trying to get into my house, and I open the door and I stab him in the neck. Maybe not the best idea if he's looking to just charge his phone. One is to assess before the person even gets in your house. Maybe don't let them in. Two, once they're in, you need to assess the level of danger that they are to that person. So now, the calmer you are, the more confident you are in the situation, the more you can handle it. Knowing where everybody in the house is. If you don't know that, imagine this: you're in charge of some type of military operation, or I'm one of the guys under the head guy. Do I want the head guy to be neurotic? Do I want him to be all nervous? Do I want him to be panicky? Do I want him to fly off in a rage anytime anything happens? I want this guy to be as level-headed as possible, but immediately take action. Now, the second thing would be this: follow your instinct. If your instinct says tear it up, and I don't mean your just desire to smash things, Sean, to do it, but is this, if in the instant your gut knows that if you do this, something's not right about this, I think I can be verbal and still be strong and still prepare myself and not hurt this person and get them out or get myself out. Or two, I get that feeling, I do this, I got to terminate right now, or I'm going to beat this person right now, and I have to take care of this now. So it's difficult to assess that quickly. Think about people in law enforcement. Those guys, that anytime they run into somebody that's doing something like that, that's a daily event, and you have to be able to make rapid decisions under high stress. The last thing would be to make sure that you understand your layout of your house and where everything is. Understand what's going on, maybe what time of day it is. If it's middle of the day, it could be, you might have, I did this a couple of months ago, the gas guy was on the side of the house fixing one of the gas lines. They'd had a problem with the reader on the meter on it, and Bodie was walking into the house, and I see somebody out. I didn't see the truck because he had parked on another spot, and he was out walking around different places and was on the side of the house. And I immediately went out to the side of the house to see what the guy was doing. So assessing, creating space to assess. The more space I have, the more time I have to assess things. less space. Again, if something happens and I need to fire it off, that's why we train. I take care of it. I'm done. Two, but calmer, more focused, and being aware to assess that situation. Now, we've had people that had done home invasions where they were, like Chris, he was on a bunch of a NyQuil and home meds, and he was groggy. Stuff's going to happen. I mean, you just have to prepare for that as much as possible. But the assessment of looking at that person, be verbal. This is why you should have somewhere in your home that you can hit a switch and it turns on just about every light in the house, or there's a lot of light. So for example, for like ours at the top of the stairs, we hit that light on, it's pretty darn bright as far as the house I can see. Understand also too, that when you turn lights on, a lot of people want to turn lights on where they are to see. What you've just provided is backlighting. So the example would be like if we're trying to tell girls this is not a good thing, but they're up in their room and they have lighter curtains and they're changing and you have your light on, it's like a slideshow. So the backlighting, understand the backlighting really enhances your silhouette to where I would have something more in front, which is why I keep one right at the very powerful flashlight. I know, Sean, you have one of those as well. That's one of the best things to have. If you can learn to work left hand there and right hand, left hand flashlight, right hand from there, that's good. I think we have a delay.
Oh, it's back. We're back.
Oh, we're back. Okay. So left hand flashlight, right hand, if you want to carry a weapon, and directing the light directly onto what, and that will help rather than you turning on lights behind you. Understand that if you have kids in the house or you have a spouse in the house, they might be scared, especially if they're little, yelling and screaming. This is why we do training to have them to where they're calmer, so that you can work easier. I know that Benny and his wife and his kids, they have words that they'll use in Hebrew, that they know if someone's in the house, to get down, whatever's going to happen. So again, preparation is key with that, and then certainly the awareness of a hyper focus of what's going on and what you need to do, and then trusting your training, trusting the training.
Okay, we had 2 questions from Mr. Adonis Ray. His first one, he said, more of a comment. He said, "War cheese."
What's up?
And then he said, "We know that you're building your expertise in energy work. What are some breathing exercises or meditation drills we can do in the comfort of our own home?"
Okay. Well, the biggest one that we work is, and all the training we've done is called a 4-sided breath. And all it is if you want to think of a 4 count, a slower 4 count, of an inhale, deep inhale, hold, and then it's a slight pause of about a 2 count, and then a 4 count release, and then a hold at the bottom. What it actually works out to, if you want to I get uber nerdy on stuff like this. If you have, I have a metronome that I work on when and this is if you guys have kids to do this. I don't know if you do this, you could even try this with kids at work. I know they've worked this in a group, and I'm a little midget right on there. I have seen this where they work this with kids in Spanish Harlem, where they would bring in a stuffed animal and they would lay it on their belly. And what they did was a 3 count, and they would lay down and breathe and just watch the animal go up and down. That's a form that's mindfulness, if you want to call it that too. The breathing, I've seen there's so many different types of breath work. That's one of the basic ones that we use. And what it works out to is if you have a metronome and you want to work on a specific time that you hear it constantly in your head, is about 5 seconds inhale, deep inhale, about a 3-second hold, and then a 5-second exhale, 3-second hold. Now, if you do that a couple of times, what happens is your parasympathetic nervous system starts to calm down. And the thing that you want to work is if you can count in your head, normally under high stress, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, rather than 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's another thing, it's a practice, and you can feel the rate of how you breathe rather so much than a specific count. A deep breath, another one would be what we call a term as a centering breath. As you do, if this is something before you need to go do something in particular, is a 6-count inhale, which is a long inhale, a 6-second inhale, a 2-second hold, and then a 7-second release, which is a long release. And all we're trying to do is to get the brain and the autonomic nervous system to reconnect as far as your breathing goes, and to calm the body down. What's interesting, and I've experienced this, usually mine is on an aggressive level, it's not on a panic level. I've worked with, and Adonis has seen this up close and personal, where we've had people that I've worked with that are having a panic attack or very stressed, and we work breathing to calm the individual down, and so that they regroup to where they can, again, think clearly to be able to do something to where the breathing is level. I know SEAL teams use what they call box breathing. It's a 4-count followed by a 4-count, 4-count, 4-count. So it'd be 4 inhale, 4-second hold, 4 exhale, 4-second hold. Now, I used to use that one when I was in the military, and then what I would try and do is I would try and run. Then as I got calmer, 5, 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6, 6, 7, 7, 7, 7, and you can feel your body calming down. The biggest reason, again, is we're working on the parasympathetic nervous system. The other reason is that if you're focused on counting and breathing, your mind can't be focused on the shit that was making you crazy or anxious or stressed out in the first place. So big deep breaths. I can always remember parents telling you to take some deep breaths and count to 10. For me, that was never long enough. 100 was better. But any type of breathing where you regulate to where it's some type of constant breathing pattern, is that the brain will start to focus on that more so than it will focus on what you've been thinking. The brain has a tendency to run back and loop back. It's like a loop on whatever you were thinking, especially if you don't know how to handle it emotionally. So stress levels, if somebody's really worried, they can calm down a little bit, and then they'll think about one thing and it'll trigger them again. So which is so important is that when I start the breathing is that I continue it until I feel it dissipate, and it'll dissipate quite a bit. Now, sometimes, like if we're fighting, I have the guys, when they come back in the corner, I will have them either sit or stand. I'd prefer they stand. If they're tired, they'll sit. And then I grab their shorts and I'll pull out, and I'll have them sit up and take just a deep breath, hold it, release it, hold it for a little bit, take a couple of deep breaths, and then they calm down. And then what else I do is I talk to them. And this could be if you're working with somebody else, with yourself, is I'll start to ask them questions. Again, once the brain is engaged in how to answer a question, the other things that it was thinking about to make it so stressed out start to go away. So again, we go back to focusing on your outcome of what you're trying to accomplish, and having that where you go back to there. But any type of the breathing, I would recommend highly, we've talked about this before, I don't know that I've done this in class that much, is the stuff from Wim Hof. And that breath work is more of a, are we down?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on a delay. We're on a delay. It's cycling. Okay, we're back.
Wait, you gotta wait. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. We're on a little delay there again. The other, as I mentioned, the other one I was talking about was Wim Hof. And the breath work that Wim does, I know for me, I calm, that to me is so calming. It does take longer to do. So if I need something in the moment, that you need to make the breath very quick. And that breathing is deep inhales and then just a release. So it's not blowing air completely out. It's just a deep inhale and then a release. Okay. So, and that's repeated over maybe 30 to 60. And then that'll start to calm down. You also have to do a breath hold after you've done it to bring back carbon dioxide levels into the body. So that one, again, if you're doing something that requires immediate attention, it's tougher to do. That's more preparational breathing, and it teaches your brain. And the other thing probably for you guys is this, is that whatever breath work you do is that, and this goes along with the training as well, is how you train it. And when you can feel it, your brain is able to, because the neural patterning is so deeply ingrained, is that you can go back to it faster and calm that much faster. So anything that I do to program guys, if you want to think about fighting, is that they work on 2-minute rounds, 30 seconds rest. And they never, almost never get more than 30 seconds rest. Unless I go 7-minute rounds, which are they're more than double what their normal rounds are. And then I give them a minute. So when we walk into the cage, if we're doing a 3-minute round, when I walk into the cage, I know when I walk in, here's what we do. I walk in, I check with them. Are you okay? Yeah. Do you want some water? Yeah. Give me your mouthpiece. I rinse it. I hold it. Did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? Yes, yes, yes. No. I want you to do this, this, and this. Yes. What are you going to do? I'm going to do this, this, and this. Okay. Do you want some more water? Yeah, no. Mouthpiece. That's 30 seconds. So now when I work with my guys, they know at 30 seconds in, I'm handing them back their mouthpiece to put it in. And they still have 30 seconds left to catch their breath. They're already prepared, and they know there's nothing rushed in there. Is that it's one, we're done way ahead of time, so they actually have extra time to breathe. But two, this is what I always do. Every day they train, they do the same thing over and over and over and over, so that it is nothing out of it. It's so normal to them. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is, I'm at the school training. So whatever you do, that breath work, you need to train it to do it. Now I worked with that with Corinne when she was shooting. She might have to run up a hill carrying things, and she transitions from maybe a shotgun to a long-range precision rifle shot. That if you're breathing, and this is happening, you're generally not very accurate. It's how to breathe quickly to gain your breath to calm the body down. So any one of those, there's a lot of different breath techniques you can work. Those are the best I've found to do to calm. Me, I try and make mine. I start with that, and usually within about 3 breaths, I can calm down, and I make it very, very shallow after that to calm my body down even more. So think about how you breathe when you sleep. So it's always funny to me when you have to show somebody how to breathe under high stress, and they go, well, shit, I'm an adult. I know how to breathe. I go, no, you don't, because you waste so much oxygen gulping. What you'll do under stress is you'll do the reverse of what you should do. And that's the panic breathing out, and then the short breaths in. It's feeling your body in that situation, putting yourself in that situation, gassing yourself. I would do this to myself on purpose, is I would run until I can't breathe anymore, or I can't do any more reps. and then immediately I try and see how fast I can recover my breath to do it again. But I've had to train it. I've done that ever since I was young, is training your body to respond to that stimulus over and over again. The other thing that I'm gonna forget the guy's name now. Adonis, you might even have seen this kid. He is a mentalist and a magician. He is from Germany or Austria. Timon is his first name. I'm going to try and remember his last name. I remember Timon from Timon and Pumbaa, yeah, the Lion King. So, but he was on Penn and Teller. You can look it up on that. But one of the things he was talking about was doing a feedback loop of how to set up a trigger on your body. So this is one of the things I do for my guys. They don't even know that I do it. I do it for myself. I do it for a lot of people in class, and they don't know I'm doing it, is that you have something, anything that can be a trigger. So one, you could work with a piece of clothing, whatever that is. You have guys that fight, they take something with them. Sevi always had his kid's SpongeBob blanket. So you see a guy laying in the back in the dressing room reading Bible verses, and he has a SpongeBob blanket over his head because it's his kid's blanket. And for him, it was like he goes, it has all of their good mojo, his little boy's mojo. So that was something that was a trigger for him that calmed him. You could do it with access of any part of your body. So think about a state that you want to have, let's say a calm state. And I'll see people do this before, and you'll see me do, I don't know if you guys would know, but maybe you're observant, is that you'll see me before we do an exercise or before I do something explosive, what do I do? And I do basically the same thing every single time. I don't know if anybody knows.
No, I don't say.
So I'll do this. I'll start before I'm going to do something. You'll see me do this. So my hands go down straight. You see my head go down slightly. I defocus and I inhale and then I exhale and then I execute. So that's a trigger for me that I've built to where I know what I'm going to do when I'm going to do something explosive, that my body, I've already trained it to do that thing to explode. So it might be, it's some guys that have pre-fight rituals. You could do it and access with the guy did on a TED Talk where he talked about they worked on a feeling of happiness. So you could do this just for focus, for calm. They did a thumb and forefinger pinch. This is the trigger for your body. So what he did is he had people go through and think of a time when they were really, really focused in their life or happy or whatever emotion you want to pick, positive one, hopefully. Think of one where you're extremely, extremely focused. Are we still up?
Yeah. I think the baby's about to wake up, so maybe we could have one last question. Just kind of.
Okay, I'll finish up with this and then we'll go one more question. Pick a time when you were really, really focused. Remember it in its entirety. It's just the same as a memory. Something you thought was really, really funny. What will happen? That thing will appear in your head. You'll feel what you felt. You knew where you were, how it felt when you were laughing, those things. And then I feel that experience as much as possible. And then when I feel it the most, I set up a trigger, whether it's I'm holding something, my thumb and forefinger together. I squeeze it for 3 seconds while I have that feeling in my body as much as possible, and then I release it. So what we're trying to do is neurologically build a trigger that then when I do this, is that immediately it sets up a stimulus response in my brain to go, time to be focused. It's time to be focused. It's time to be focused. It's game time. So for me, that is here. That's time to get it. Hopefully that helps. So do you have one more question?
Yeah, Adonis asked about diet. He said, what food should we be focusing on eating during this time? Foods that combat the virus, the respiratory and digestive symptoms.
Woo, yeah, that's a good one. The biggest, here's the big problem. When you have a limited diet, you gotta eat what's available. When in Rome, do as the Romans. Me personally, I don't like traveling as much, only for one reason, is that's because I can't have the food that I need to eat when it's there. If you mentally prepare yourself that you're going to have to eat some different things, and the effects that it has on your body, and if you don't know, that's a good thing to test to see how it does affect it. You might have to eat some things. You might be somewhere that you need to eat things that you never eat, and may make you feel pretty crappy. If you're in a survival situation, you're going to eat stuff that you would probably never want to eat, but you got to eat anyway, and your body deals with it. If you're ahead of it mentally, then you can kind of get a jump on what your body's going to do. I would do this, is that you need to, the biggest things is not as much food, but it's hydration. That is one of the biggest. Your body doesn't operate well when you're not hydrated. It just doesn't. It affects everything from your immune system to burning fat. It's fuel for your brain. You need that fluid for your joints. I've seen people that are dehydrated that tell me they're sick. You're not sick, you're dehydrated, because their joints, they feel like they have the flu, or they feel like some disease, or there's a problem in their body, or whatever. It's because of that. I've had people come in, I have back problems. And I go, show me where it hurts. And they do this on their back. I go, yep, that's your kidneys. And how much water do you drink a day? And they go, that means none. You're dehydrated, and that's where it'll affect your body. So hydration is paramount if you can do that. Sleep is huge. I say that as I was up at 4 o'clock this morning, up doing stuff. I already put in an hour and a half workout and done a bunch of errands and done things, but that's my body, and I know how much I can sleep and be alert and be ready. If you can catch a nap here and there, it's not like we have a bunch of shit to do as far as working right now, but catch a nap, restful sleep, hydration, deal with the stress. Then you could go do the meditation. Actually, we have stuff that's online under conscious transformation stuff that you have a free 5-week, just 20 minutes of just calming the mind and just breathing is great to start with. I can put out the website. I'll link it, all this stuff from there. I'm also doing some programs with that as part of my teaching, as the apprentice work that I'm doing for that. So that is all about mental, emotional, vision or outcome, and intuition, how to deal with all those things, especially right now. Those are skills that are more important than just about anything. And then the last thing on your food is, if you're going to have food that I would say consider maybe shitty food, or food that you don't normally eat, eat until you feel a little bit full, and then wait 15 or 20 minutes. And if you're still hungry, eat more. If you're not, stop. Your body will know nutrients, what type of nutrients that it needs from that food. And this is why it's so important for us. Like, we always have pemmican or jerky and maybe some dried fruit, things like that. Things that are very nutritionally dense. If you can get a hold of things that are nutritionally dense, much better for the brain. And then the last thing would be to keep up on movement. Newton's laws still work. Newtonian physics still work. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. A body at rest tends to stay in rest. If you ever experience this, and I see people do this every day, if you're not doing something, working out, even going for a walk, doing something. And I'm putting a bunch of videos out for online exercises that are freebies. So and you guys can ask me for different exercises or how to target different areas, and I'll put them out for you. Do something. People that sit on their ass constantly want to sit on their ass. When you start moving and doing things, it becomes your norm. Again, it's all training. I'm training. Think of this. This is one of the things that Joey talks about is this. I have people want to say it's my mind and my body. And we do this. It's the mind and a body. The body. You are not your body. It's a carcass. It's a meat sack that's carrying around the you. If you want to think about it as I'm not particularly religious, but I'm a spiritual person. If you want to think about it as your soul or your spiritual self or you, your highest self, that's inside. When you die, it's gone. Your carcass remains. The carcass is just a carcass. This is the suitcase you got to carry your shit in around while you're here on planet Earth. It does whatever you want to do. It doesn't go, oh, my body does this, my body does this. You're not dictate. You dictate it. That's somebody that's not taking control of their body. But don't think about it as it's doing this to me. It's something you're doing, and just be aware of it. Be aware of your body and what it's doing, and then you can control it. The mind, it's not my mind, it's the mind. It runs. And again, like Joey says, think of it like a 3-year-old. You wouldn't let a 3-year-old run your household or drive you somewhere. So that's your mind, and it runs like, and the more anxious you are and crazy things going on, the more it runs. Understand that it just does that. So think of your mind like a little 3-year-old that's following you around talking nonstop. You wouldn't stop every 5 seconds and go, what did you say? Let me write this down. This sounds like sage-like wisdom. As you go, yeah, that's cute. Okay, great. Okay. And then a leopard jumped out of the sky and landed with a helicopter on a dinosaur. And you're like, yeah, okay, great. All right, sweetie, go play. So that's your brain. Don't let it dictate to you what it's going to do. You control it. Again, a good way to control that: exercise, move your body, hydrate, sleep. If you're going to eat some bad food, eat it, be done with it. Don't beat yourself up with it. Wait 15 minutes. If you're still hungry, go eat. Do that. Oh, last one would be good on this. These are many studies have shown the bigger the plate you used for your food, the more you'll eat. If you look at some of the cheaper buffets, they give you plates that are this big. And then people try and get more. It's proven fact, you eat less. On a bigger plate, you eat more. The other thing is this, and I've noticed this when I did it myself, is that if you're watching TV, you're on the internet, you're on your phone, you're reading. If you're doing something while you're eating other than eating, you will eat more because it's a distraction. You don't realize how much you're eating. So if you're eating, eat. Turn the shit off, turn the TV off, turn your phone off. Don't sit and look at your phone while you eat, your book, et cetera, et cetera. So those would be super important. And then meditation, just calming the brain, understanding that there's only so much you can control. There's 2 things: what you do and how do you respond to what's happening around you. Those are the only 2 things you can control: what you do and how you respond to everything around you. So think about that. You can meditate on that. Put that in your brain, work from there. Try and do some different things. Do something, pick a book that you would never read. Pick it on interior decorating, I don't know, or learning Tagalog or something different, so your brain has something different to work on, and developing more neuroplasticity. And that would be my biggest tips on there. And then certainly we'll put out more exercise stuff as well. Oh, and be happy. Don't fucking be grumpy. I know I was grumpy as hell yesterday. But eventually I got over it. So don't let it dictate to you what you're going to do. Are you good?
Yeah, I think so. So we'll be posting this on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook just for future references, and we'll link some of the things you were talking about on when we put it on there. And
Very cool.
yeah,
Very cool. Well, I thank you guys for popping. I missed everybody as far as seeing everybody training. I'm super excited about instructor class on Sundays because I know it's going to, as I told Jamie the first time she came in, I go, sometimes it can get pretty heady in here. And we're talking about, quantum physics and how it applies to self-defense situation. But hopefully this stuff will be done in a couple of weeks, and then we can move on once people get their brain back together. In the meantime, if you need anything, don't hesitate to text me. Just text me. That's the quickest way. I respond quicker to a text than a phone call or an email. Just shoot me a text and go, hey, I'm just thinking about this. Trust me, you're not bugging me. Maybe Dom does like that when he keeps texting me over and over. Love you, Dom. But just text me if you have questions on anything strange. If you come upon something new and you think would be cool, do that. I probably have 100 articles saved. It's usually from physics and what have you, to exercise, you name it, to anything with neurology or physiology or psychology to get. So just let me know. And I will see you guys soon. Have a good rest of your weekend.